Good morning. Yo, yo, yo. Damon UK, what's up, buddy? Good morning to the peoples. Yo, good morning to Vape Base. Yeah, I'm pretty good. So I really just want to get this Sundown flipping finished. It's causing me massive headaches, man. It's causing me massive headaches. So in this live stream, I try a few other tricks that I have thought of in my absence from the live stream to get this Sundown audio amplifier up and running. So I thought that since this amplifier is has been such a headache, it would be good to live stream all of the progress on it, because the ones that are a massive headache generally tend to be the most informative videos, because they show me doing things that I wouldn't usually do if the amplifier was a nice, quick, easy repair. Missed the start of this amp. Damon, you missed lots of this amp. So this amp has exploded twice on live stream. The first time it exploded a FET. The second time was actually my mistake in sliding the preamplifier board into the headers. I got it one pin wrong, so I was like one pin too high. So it accidentally sent rail voltage to output side ground, and it killed loads of stuff. But the main issue that this amplifier is having is that the amplifier works perfectly in itself. So the amplifier works perfectly, apart from when you slide the preamplifier board onto the main board, and then when the amp powers up, it sends a large pop through the audio signal, and then it switches all the FETs on fully, and they tend to explode sometimes when that happens. Well, this is a customer amp, so I can't really not fix it. It's not really an option, you know. I gotta fix it. It's my job. My job to fix this damn thing. So first of all, I'm going to start off by showing you a little trick that I'm going to incorporate that will hopefully prevent me causing any further damage on this amplifier whilst we are troubleshooting the issue. So on the preamplifier board yesterday, what I did is we went through and I changed a bunch of the op amps. I changed the TL074Cs, I changed a couple of the 4558s, and also changed a 47k ohm resistor. And since I've made those changes, it still pops when the amplifier comes on, but it doesn't seem to be as bad. It doesn't seem to be as intense as it was before. Now, I've been doing these tests with the output MOSFETs, the gates disconnected from the board. So that means that as far as the amplifier is concerned, the FETs are not on the board, which means that I'm just reading the low side drive wave, and I'm going by that. Because when I attach the gates to put the FETs back in the board, obviously then sometimes the pop causes the FETs to explode. So while I've been troubleshooting this, the FETs have been disconnected. Now, because I think I have improved and lessened the pop issue by changing the stuff on this preamp board, I'm going to reconnect the FETs, and I'm going to turn the amplifier on and off. Now, last time we turned the amplifier on and off with the FETs connected, it exploded. So the reason that it explodes, okay, is because the FETs turn fully on, and they spike. There's a big voltage spike and a big current spike. And the reason that they explode is because obviously when you turn the amplifier on, okay, the amplifier gets fully charged on these rail capacitors. Now these capacitors in the middle of the board, these are what store the rail voltage that the power supply generates. So even if you use a really low current supply, even if you're limiting your current supply, if there's a problem with the output section that shorts the FETs or turns all the FETs on, no matter how little current you're sending into the amplifier's power supply section, the caps are storing enough energy to cause damage to the output section. So even if you turn the amplifier off and the FETs turn on, the FETs will become blown and damaged because there's enough energy stored in the capacitors here to cause damage. Therefore, in order to prevent there being damage caused by stored energy in the capacitors, I am going to remove all but one rail capacitor. So that significantly reduces the amount of energy stored on the output section, so that if there is a problem with the output section and the FETs do turn on fully and as if they're going to blow, hopefully, because the energy stored is greatly reduced, the FET doesn't get damaged, or if there is any damage caused, it's very minor. So if we take a look at the back of the board here, we can see that our rail capacitors, they go all along here like this. So you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 rail capacitors. Now some of these will be doing the positive rail and some of these will be doing the negative rail. So what I need to do is I need to leave one cap on the positive and one cap on the negative. I mean, I could probably get away with removing them completely, but then we don't have any smoothing and that could cause problems in itself, so I don't particularly want to do that. So what we need to do is we just need to have a look and see. So we've got, looks like it alternates. So we've got one capacitor doing one rail and the other capacitor doing the other rail. So that one's doing that. That one's doing that. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4. These are that way round, so this is going to be the negative. Okay, so it looks like we've got 4 caps doing the negative, and then there'll be these other 4 doing the positive. Yeah, so there's 4 caps doing negative rail and 4 caps doing positive rail. So what I want to do is I want to leave 1 positive and 1 negative cap in the board. And so I can just literally opt to leave these 2 in the board. One, this is doing the negative rail here, one is doing the positive rail. I don't need to leave one per side because I think they're just paralleled anyway. So I'm going to take my soldering iron now. I'm going to start desoldering these caps, and so I can reduce the amount of potential energy stored in the output section. So if there is a failure, it doesn't actually cause horrific amounts of damage and explosions. So the pop that I see on the oscilloscope, it wouldn't be audible through a speaker because the relay has not engaged yet, you see? So there would only be a pop in the speaker if the relay is engaged, making a connection between the amplifier section and the speaker terminals. If this amplifier didn't have a relay, then yes, the pop, there would be a massive pop through the speakers because the output section jumps to negative rail. So it would be a massive boff. The speaker would jump straight downwards or jump straight outwards to full excursion. What is remaining to fix this amp? Well, that's a question that I'd love to know. I don't know what's remaining to fix this amplifier. I'm just trying to fix the damn thing. Trying all I can. So there's a few more ideas that I've got to hopefully get this thing reliably up and running. I mean, the amplifier works perfectly. The amplifier board is beautiful. It works lovely. It's just the preamp board. As soon as you plug the preamp board in, that's when the problems start. Ah, Zikan donates 100 SEK, which is Swedish krona. My friend, oh, is that Swedish or is that? Yeah, I think that's Swedish krona. Thank you very much for the really kind donation, buddy. That's wicked. Thank you very much indeed. Really, really kind of you, my friend. If you've got any questions, man, give me a shout. Let me know. I'll do my best to answer them. So is it necessarily better to take out rail caps before powering up the amp, just in case of a fault? Well, like, so this is quite rare, okay? I mean, in an ideal world, if taking out the rail caps didn't take so long, if it was just a really quick kind of, yeah, just like if they clipped in and out, like on headers, then if you were working on an output section, yeah, it wouldn't be a bad idea to remove most of the rail caps. Don't remove all of them, because if you remove all of them, then you don't have any filtering from the power supply switch waves after the rectifiers, which is probably not a good idea to send that to the output section. But yeah, if you could remove all but one cap per rail, so this amplifier has a positive rail and a negative rail, so we are leaving 2 caps, one for the positive rail, one for the negative rail. What that does, it just makes it safer when working on the output section, because there's less stored energy, so that if there is a fault that causes DC to be sent to the MOSFETs or something like that, then at least not all of the energy from all of the caps is shorted through the FETs. It's just the energy from 1 or 2 caps, which isn't anywhere near as bad. I saw you in Greg Fagan's video. Yeah, man, he linked me that video. That's quite funny. Quite a good video. Good morning from North Carolina. It's 5:45 AM. Damn. Did you get help with the amp? Yeah, I did. I messaged Gordon at the Amp Doctor. And the things that he recommended, he said that it could be it could be a weak supply. It could be a weak power supply to the op amps. But I checked the Kia 7915 and 7815. And they're actually fine, so it's not that. What else did he suggest? Yeah, there was a couple of things he suggested, but I think I'm not too sure. Obviously, it's very difficult for him trying to make suggestions like without actually having the amplifier in front of him. And it's the same for me, where like when some of you guys ask me, oh, what could be the fault with this amplifier, I try my best to give you you know, examples of similar faults that I've had, but without actually seeing the amp, it's very difficult to give true advice. So, but he hadn't seen anything like exactly like this that he was able to say, oh yeah, that's definitely going to be this issue, and yeah, I've seen that before. That's a common fault, and this is how you fix it. It was very much like, fucking hell. Well, could be this, could be that, but yeah, it's one of those really weird, annoying faults that doesn't really have a quick, easy go-to solution. 2:45 in Cali. Oh wow, so I'm catching you in the night time, and it's nice and early in the morning here. Well, it's 10:46 AM here. So this is why I don't generally tend to remove the rail caps if I can avoid it, because removing the rail caps usually takes a long time, because there's a very high thermal mass on the rail caps, because so you have to hold the iron on the board for ages, and so it does take a little while off most of the time to actually remove the rail caps. So if you can avoid doing that, then it probably makes your life easier and quicker for the repair. But in this case I would rather spend the time now and remove the rail caps rather than spend the time later removing and replacing all the output MOSFETs again because they've exploded. That's not something that I would really like to do again. I've done that once already. Now, and also often when you remove the rail caps, because they're such a high thermal mass and they're very heavy devices, they're very heavy caps, and they're very tight in the holes, you sometimes end up pulling the via. So yeah, this is why I generally don't try and avoid pulling the rail caps if I can avoid it, because sometimes you can just pull the vias out and it just makes life a bit of a headache. and they're also glued down, which again makes life a little difficult. So I actually did a very good job on this one, and it hasn't pulled the veer. It looks really nice. Yeah, it looks just like a brand new cap. Obviously got some glue on there, so we can get that off. And do you plan on clamping the amplifier when it's done? Yeah, of course, absolutely. So the only way to know for sure if your amplifier is fully repaired is to do a bench test. So we clamp the power from the amplifier, make sure it's doing rated power, and if it's not doing rated power, usually the thing will explode before it gets there. If there's still a fault with the amplifier, usually as soon as you try and clamp some power to it, the fault will cause the amplifier to fail. So yeah, you always have to bench test, clamp an amplifier once you finish repairing, to ensure that your repair was actually solid and decent. So the best way to remove these rail caps is actually just to walk them out, and I'm pretty sure there's a good song. I think it's either by DJ Unk. I think it's a DJ Unk does Walk It Out. Hey, now walk it out, walk it out. So that's what we're doing with these caps right now. You cook up one of the pads on one side, and you just wiggle it a tiny bit. Like you just pull on it a very small amount, not much. You might not even see the leg move. Then you go to the other side and you pull the other side, and you go back to the other side and you pull it, and eventually you'll see it start to seesaw, and the pins will start to come off the board. But you don't have to pull it very hard to start with at all. And you don't want to pull it very hard to start with at all, because you end up pulling the veers out. So yeah, another good job on this one. No pulled veers. So we're just going to continue doing this on. I need to do 1, 2, 3. I need to do 4 more of these in order to get the amount of caps off the board that I desire. Maybe the head cam will be do a better job of showing this methodology. How do you make sure the caps are discharged? You can either read them with a multimeter to make sure they don't have any voltage on them, or you can take a pair of pliers and just short them out. And if there's any charge in them, then you get a nice big spark. Especially if there's over 100 volts in them, you'll get a beautiful big spark and a loud bang that will probably deafen you for a few seconds. Now walk it out, hey, walk it out. West side walk it out, north side walk it out, east side walk it out, west side walk it out, hey. Yeah. I still got my remote wire attached. Let's get rid of that. Shorting the amp terminal doesn't discharge the rail caps. It discharges the power supply caps, but not the rail caps. So you can short out the amplifier's power terminals, and you get a spark, and you think, okay, cool, that's discharged. But no, there is still 120 volts DC sitting on the output caps. But you didn't realize that, and so you go ahead and touch your soldering iron on there, and then boom! Big fuck off spark in your face. And you're like, damn son, why did that happen? I thought I discharged the amplifier. But no, you only discharged the power supply caps, not the output rail caps. Rookie mistake, big spark in your face. Okay, one more to go. This didn't actually take as long as I thought. Probably took, what, a few minutes to remove the rail caps that I wanted to remove here. You could use 2 soldering irons at the same time to remove the caps. Yeah, that would be good if I had a third hand to pull the cap out with. I'd just get my dick out and just like wrap my dick around the cap and pull it out with that. No, you can't. Like, you got 2 hands on the soldering iron, then so what are you going to use to pull the cap out with? Because the caps are they're glued to the board with some glue as well, so they don't just fall off like a small capacitor might do or something like that. You have to actually pull the thing out, and also the leads on the caps are very tight in the holes, and so they don't just fall out. You have to actually give it a small tug. Okay, just sucking the solder from the holes in here, and then I'm just going to power the amplifier up, and we're going to check that it works with these rail caps removed. It should do. There's no reason it shouldn't. I've done this before with Banda. God damn it. Something stuck in my desoldered bone. There we go. You can hold both irons in one hand. Please don't wrap your dick around it. I suppose you could hold 2 irons with one hand, like chopsticks. I'm okay at chopsticks, but I'm never that great at chopsticks. I feel like if you were a Chinese amplifier repair technician, then you could absolutely master the 2 soldering irons method, because yeah, the chopsticks skills would definitely come in handy there. I'm in NC2. You got me trying to fix amps. I've been keeping an eye on you. Good work. Cool. D Flu, thanks for the comments, man. I hope you are successful in your amplifier repair adventures. More successful than I am in this one, anyway. All right. Okay, so yeah, most of the rail caps removed just there, and let's pop this back down. get the solder on the bench like that. There we go. Look, it looks so empty without the big ass caps on there. It's like, damn son, where'd you go? Yeah, so that's cool. So what I'm going to do first of all, I think I'm actually going to power this board up. One thing next I want to do is obviously, so we last time we removed the we lifted the gate resistors. So basically, in order to work on this amplifier without the FETs being turned on, so I just wanted to check the drive waves. I didn't want the FETs to be activated at all. What I did is I lifted the gate resistor here. So basically, the gate resistors are not connected to the board, so the FETs are not receiving any drive. But very important, there is still a pull down resistor here that gets rid of any residual current that tends to leak its way onto the gates. Without this pull down resistor, the FETs will turn on because the gates do gain a charge of their own accord, and then they'll explode. So we need a pull down resistor connected to the gate, but the gate resistor can be lifted from the board so that the driver board over here isn't connected to the FET by the gate, so they don't turn on. As far as the driver board is concerned, the FETs are not in the board. So now I'm going to go ahead and reconnect the gates so that we can turn the amplifier on properly, and without most of the rail caps in there, and see what happens. But in order to do that, I need to go ahead and suck the holes from the gate resistor locations first. Do they make hot tweezers for your station? Yes, they do, but the hot tweezers, because they're tweezers, they have a very, very low thermal mass. I actually have them here on my drawer of requirements. So I can't actually see what my head cam is pointing at now, but hopefully my head cam is pointing at my tweezers. Yeah, so these are these are good for SMD things. Because they're tweezers, they have a really low thermal mass, and so they never are able to heat up enough to remove things like rail caps, because it just can't dump enough heat onto the board quick enough. You need a bigger, larger tip that has a higher thermal mass in order to do something like that. What actually happened to this amp, and how did you get your hands on a Sundown amp? Because they're just sold in the USA. No, they're not. Sundown has a huge selling market in the UK. There are you got Wayne Higley, who is the Sundown audio UK distributor. So he imports them from the US, and then they get distributed and sold out through the UK. And Sundown is one of the UK's most popular high competition brands. They're very, very popular among the UK bass scene. So yeah, this amplifier actually was blown because the installer, not the customer, the installer wired the subs up as a dead short by accident. So the customer went to turn his system on after getting it back from the installer, who did a phenomenal job. He did a beautiful job on the install, I have to say. Just you know, unfortunately, the subs were wired up as a dead short, so the customer turned his amplifier on to play some music, turned the bass up a little bit, and the amplifier was driving a 0 ohm, well not exactly a 0 ohm, but pretty much a dead short circuit across the wires, and yeah, blew the amp. Blew the amp in a very, very big way. What actually happened is the output section blew first, yeah? So the protection circuit did work. So the amplifier was trying to drive a dead short circuit, the short circuit protection didn't work. So the output MOSFET blew, okay? So the output MOSFETs blew, and but the power supply didn't blow straight away. See? But obviously the customer is sitting in his cabin in the car, and so he's turned his system on, and he's got no bass because the amplifier is in protection mode because it's blown an output section FET. So, but he doesn't know that. So he thinks, why is there no bass? So he turns the ignition off and on again to reset the amps. Now, the amplifier has a blown output section, and now it's been turned off. And now the amplifier's been asked to turn back on. Now, there is a very small delay on the protection circuit of these amps, so that the power supply can charge the rail caps, because the rail caps present a very low resistance initially, to the power supply when they're empty. So the protection circuit is delayed by a very fraction of a second, so that the power supply can charge the rail caps up, and then the protection circuit activates. But unfortunately, because this amplifier had a shorted output section, because the protection circuit was delayed, the power supply attempted to try and power the short circuit, which overloaded the power supply section before the protection circuit kicked in, and it exploded the power supply section as well. So this amplifier had a blown power supply and a blown output section, but they both happened at different times. The output section blew first, and then the power supply blew from trying to power the blown output section. Okay, so I've sucked all the holes for the gate resistors. So what I need to do now is take my tweezers. I just need to pop these gate resistors back through their holes, and then we can resolder them in, and that'll come back to life. I missed one. I'm pretty sure I got them all. How strange. How did I miss that one? Oh, that's because it's way over here near the preamp section. I didn't expect there to be a gate resistor over here. Fair enough. So, is the guy who installed the amp paying for this repair? Yes, the installer who did the build and wired the subs up is paying for this repair, because it is his fault that the amplifier blew. Fortunately, he's a very nice guy, and he understands where he went wrong, and he understands that it was his wiring fault that blew the amplifier, so therefore it's unfair that the customer should have to pay for the amplifier repair in this case. So yeah, he's covering the bill for this repair, which unfortunately is going to be a goddamn very expensive repair bill, because there was a shit load of stuff wrong with this amplifier. And there possibly still is stuff wrong with this amplifier, but that's what we're trying to find out just today. That's what we're trying to find out today. So gate resistors just going back in the holes just now, as you can see here, blurrily on my crappy head cam. Okay, cool. So that's all popped back through the holes. So let's solder from the other side, and then we can do our first power up. And we're going to do our first power up without the preamplifier board in there, in the amp, just to make sure the amplifier comes on as it should do with the half the rail caps out, well, most of the rail caps out. Just check I got all of them. I think we got all of them there. Yep, and this side, let's make sure we got them all. Yeah, okay, cool. So that's all the gate resistors now soldered back in the board. So I do believe we can do a power up now, but always after soldering, before you power it up, just it's always a really good idea just to double check you haven't got any solder bridges or shorts by just going along each of the banks of FETs and just checking for continuity, any shorts. It takes a couple of seconds, and sometimes you will have accidentally somehow made a short solder bridge, and doing this just prevents you from killing any FETs. Like, it took a couple of seconds and there's no continuity, so that's good. Okay, so let's give some power. Let's adjust my cameras here so we're looking good on the screen. Okay, let's put this preamp board slightly to the back, out the way for the time being. So we've got our oscilloscope probe here. 200 US, I want to go down to 10 US, and we're going to reject low frequencies on the scope. Okay, good. Yeah, cool. So I guess here we go. Full power. What's it going to be? Okay, let's just check the rail. So we've got 57 volts on the rail there, 52 volts on the negative rail there. Yep, looking good. So full duty. There we go. And we're drawing 3.3 amps, 3.4 amps. It's a little bit higher than it was before, but no worries. Let's go ahead and check the other side. Yep. Okay, so that looks cool. Yeah, the amplifier comes to life beautifully every time. So we can go ahead and turn the amplifier back on again, and it comes to life straight away, nice and easy. Looking good. So yeah, amplifier seems to be working pretty well. So let's wait for the rail capacitors to fully discharge. Then we're going to slide the preamplifier board back in place, and then we'll power her up again. And this is the scary part, because on my live stream 2 days ago now, this is the part where the FETs exploded when we power the amplifier up with the preamplifier board attached. So this is a bit that I'm a bit wary of, because sometimes it might go bad in this one. PD users it's going to reply to some SPL Lab queries. So I still sell SPL Lab kit in the UK here. It's pretty cheap compared to anything else you can get. Cheapest one is £189 for millimeter small all-in-one unit. Great for quick tests and comparing after upgrades or between amps, etc. Handheld meter is more advanced, and you can connect to a laptop like in competition. And you can also add the power sensor for clamping power at a later date. Isn't it cheaper to buy a new one now? Yes, you only know if it was cheaper if all the work is done. So no, the repair is not going to be anywhere near the price. So to buy this Sundown amplifier brand new in the UK, I think is something like £1,300, which is getting on for probably about $1,800 or something. It's very expensive because we have to pay for shipping and import duty tax and everything like that. So these amps from Sundown from the States are pretty expensive, brand new. So I think probably the cost of the repair on this one is currently looking at about £250 to £280. It's still way cheaper than even the cost price from the distributors to bring in a new one of these amplifiers. So I mean, really, the repair on this amplifier is still worth doing, even if you spend up to sort of £400–500. But I'm never going to charge that. That's excessive amount for a repair. The most that I'll charge on a repair like this is probably going to be like around, like, you know, a big like 10,000 watt RMS amplifier board. If I was doing a similar repair where we had to change everything and rebuild the thing from the ground up, the maximum that I'd probably charge is about £350 to £380 on that sort of repair. So this one, purely because it's taken so long, because there's so many issues that we're having to deal with here, yeah, this is going to be probably one of the more expensive 6K boards that I will have repaired for this. Now, okay, scary part now then, guys. We're applying the preamplifier board, the thing that made it explode last time, and we're going to fire the amplifier up, and we're going to see what happens. So I'm going to probe the low side drive again, which is the thing that goes to negative rail. So let's hit the power and let's see what happens. Now, it usually works perfectly first time from the rail caps being empty. It's when you turn it on once the rail caps are full that it was giving the problem last time. So let's see what it does. I'm probably going to shield my eyes because I don't want bits of fat flying in my face. So let's do this. Okay, so that comes on perfectly fine with the preamplifier board, and I'm going to turn it off. Now this is the scary part. We're going to turn it on again with the rail caps full. Eesh! No, that's not good. Right, so it didn't explode, but it still sent the audio to negative rail. So that we haven't fixed anything with the preamp board there. It's still the exact same issue, and that has massive potential to blow the amplifier up if it's powered up like that again. So the point where the amplifier is at now, it works beautifully fine as long as you turn the amplifier on when the rail caps are discharged, okay? If you turn the amplifier on when the rail caps are full or have charge in them, then there is a potential for the output section to explode. And that's purely, the reason for that is because the Class D switching is activating before the op amps come to life. So there is, I mean, there must be a fault somewhere still here with that's causing that to happen. But there is a way, there probably is going to be a way around that, a way to sort of resolve that. What I could do is I could somehow incorporate a delay on the Class D switch turn on. So at the moment, the drive ICs are obviously being told to turn on pretty quick straight away. But if I can add a delay to their turn on, then I can ask them to turn on after the preamplifier board has done its pop issue that causes this. Right, so because I've only got 2 rail capacitors in the board now, fortunately the voltage there actually sinks down really quickly. So we're already down at 6 volts on the caps. So if I go ahead and power her up again now, and just to prove a point here, I'm going to go all the way up to 14.4 volts on the power supply. Let's move this wire out the way so you can see that a little clearer there. So yeah, we're going to go all the way up to about 14.4, 14.5 volts. So we're going to turn the amplifier on the same as it would be turned on in a vehicle. Okay, so let's probe the low side drive again. And let's power her up fully, and this is going to come to life. There we go, and that came on beautifully clean. There was not a single little hiccup in how this amplifier just powered up. Okay, so that works perfectly fine as long as the customer turns the amplifier on from a position where the rail caps are discharged. He won't have a problem. So let's just probe the rail caps. You can see there we've got 126 volts on there still, but that is actually declining relatively quickly because we've only got 2 caps in the board because I removed the rest of them. So we're going to wait for that rail voltage to sink all the way back down again, and then we're going to power her up one more time just to confirm. Chris says capacitor and resistor to adjust the timing. We could do. The problem is with this is that I'm not entirely familiar and confident with adding, so I'm trying to add new bits to the circuit is a different ball game to repairing. So repair is taking an amplifier, working out what it's blown and what doesn't work, and making it work again, replacing the parts. But to actually add parts to an amplifier board that weren't there already to change its characteristics is a lot more complicated, and you need a lot more training. So I've only been doing amplifier repair for a year and a half now, and so to know what to add to correctly delay the amplifier's Class D switch turn on is a little bit more advanced at this point in time. I could probably work it out, but I don't really know where to start looking in that respect. I mean, I know that pin on the ICs, on the drive ICs, which are originally IRS 21844S drive ICs, pin number 2 is responsible for turning the chip on. It's the activation pin, I think. It's the shutdown pin, something like that. So I know where to start looking for, but I don't know necessarily what to replace to further delay the switch on. Right, so the rail voltage has sunken back down to 10 volts now. So if this time I'm going to turn the current on the power supply all the way up to 20 amps. So it's a lot of current there, so the amplifier should turn on very quickly, similar to how it might do in a vehicle. So we're going to see whether having more current available changes how this acts when it turns on. Again, we're going to shield the eyes from any flying MOSFET parts. There we go. So that came on very fast, nice and quick, and no issues there at all. So yeah, as long as it's powered up from a off state where the capacitors are discharged, it's fine. Morning from the US, Bearvich. Just finished repairing a Hafler home rack mount amp. Wow, that's good for you, man. I'm not so good on the home audio stuff. Loving how much I have learned from this amp you're working on. Super cool. Yeah, that is a good thing, I suppose. This amplifier is a massive headache, so I guess that the amount of information that you guys can pick up from this repair is good. But this repair is testing the boundaries of my knowledge. It's already beaten me. I mean, technically, at this point in time, the amplifier has kind of beaten me because I am unable to locate what is causing the pop in the preamp circuit. I mean, I could probably find it out by trial and error. This is the preamp circuit. I imagine that it's probably a capacitor on the preamp circuit. So it's probably these small blue film capacitors. These tend to go bad all the time. So the issue is probably lays in one of these small blue film capacitors, or it could be one of these big red film, these red capacitors here. Or it could be in one of these sort of orangey disc capacitors here. Like, it's going to be a capacitor issue probably that's causing this problem. But for me to resolve that, if it is a capacitor issue, I'd have to change every single cap on this preamp board. And that's not something that I have the time to do just now. Secondly, another interesting thing is that it could be not a problem with the input board. It could actually still be an issue on the main board. For example, the 15 volt plus minus supply voltages to the op amps, they could be running weak for some reason. I mean, they seem fine and pretty strong, but at the end of the day, they could be a problem somewhere in that power supply section there, which thus causes low current to be passed to the op amps, which means that when they turn on, there's a small pop. So I could go ahead and spend hours replacing all the capacitors on this board and still not resolve the issue, which is a massive waste of time. Really, in an ideal world, what I would love to have, what I would really love to have right now is a spare one of these preamp boards. Because if I had a spare one of these that I knew was good and worked, I could just slide it on and see if the issue was still there. If the issue was still there, then I know the problem's on the board somewhere. If the issue disappears, then I know that there's an issue on the preamp board, and that will then allow me to compare multimeter diode setting readings between the good board and the bad board to further pinpoint where the problem lies. But without that, it's just a really long guessing game, and I really don't have the time to go about doing that. Yeah, so Perry's guide, I've read all of Perry's guide, and the good thing about the way my brain works, I could remember like a section on this if this was a problem, but unfortunately Perry's guide doesn't have any information that's specific to this issue. However, that's a good idea actually. I hadn't thought of contacting Perry. Perry's generally very happy to help if you explain the issue well. So what I might do is I might actually contact Perry and see if he's got any advice for me in this regard. But in order to contact Perry, I'm going to have to make a small video that I can upload to YouTube to then link to him. And in order to do that, I'll have to stop the live stream. So I'll do that later. But I think, you know what, guys? I think for the time being, I'm probably going to have to call it quits on this one for the time being, and maybe speak to Perry. I could just reassemble it, and what I could do is I could actually, there's a couple of like bodge repairs that I could do here to make the amplifier work and stable for the customer without actually fixing the main problem that's going on here. I could reduce the value of the rail capacitor discharge resistors. So if we look on the board here, okay, the rail capacitors here, they actually discharge slowly through these two green resistors here. See these two? These are the rail capacitor discharge resistors. So when you power the amplifier down, whatever energy is stored in these capacitors slowly discharges to ground through these resistors. Now obviously that does that quite slowly because the resistors are of a higher value. But if I want to make sure that the customer always powers the amplifier up with the capacitor discharged, I could actually lower the ohm value of these resistors, causing the rail capacitors to discharge at a faster rate, which means that there is less chance that the customer powers the amplifier up when the capacitors are still stored with energy. Is it an idea to send Perry a video of the steg? Yeah, we could send Perry a video of the steg as well. The steg, though, the steg still has ideas and pathways that I can think that might be the problem with the steg. So if when I run out of ideas with the steg, if the new driver board doesn't work with the steg, then I'll email Perry about that one. Like emailing Perry is like a massive last resort for me. I like to try and get this stuff figured out and sorted out by myself because I learn more that way, and I don't like to hassle him as well with these issues, because I mean, I'm not the best at amplifier repair in the world, but generally if there's a problem like this with an amplifier that I'm really struggling to sort out, generally it's like a really in-depth big ass problem, and like I don't know whether Perry would necessarily be able to help me with that from a distance. Not being there in front of the amplifier is very difficult to know how to help. A video is also obviously very useful, but in order for Perry to really use his best skill, he'd probably want to sit there in front of the amplifier with the multimeter and probe around and see what's going on himself. You know, it's a bit easier to do it that way when you're doing it yourself, kind of thing. Okay, so for the time being then, guys, on this amplifier, I'm going to put this to one side for now. I will make a video that I'm going to email to Perry on this one, and then I'll let you guys know exactly what he suggests, because getting a second opinion, it's like going to the doctors and getting a second opinion on something, you know. I'd really love to get a second opinion on this one to try and work out what's going on here. So what I'm going to do is put this one just over here on the back burner, literally on the back burner here, and I'm gonna refresh my. I'm gonna take a break from that, and we're gonna look at a different amplifier now. I'm gonna go upstairs. I'm gonna go and grab. I think what we should do next is we should probably work on a B2 audio amplifier. That'd be quite nice. Either one of Giant's ones, or I was actually sent a B2 mono amplifier from Jay Holm, who is the CEO of B2. He sent me an amplifier himself for me to work on. So let me just bag up all these parts, because the Sundown parts are still floating on the bench there. So let's bag up all these bits and pieces here, and then we can move on to something else, because I do need to crack on and get some other amps repaired. I've spent a bit too long on this Sundown really already. Have you checked the plus minus 15 to make sure it's their on up, to make sure it's their on power up and not delayed? So I have checked the positive and negative 15 volt rails. So the Kia the Kia 7915 and 7815 are both working well. Those voltages, the plus and minus 15, both build at the same rate. When you watch the output of the Kia 7815 and 7915, obviously you imagine the on the scope there, you've got the two lines of voltage, yeah, and when you turn the amplifier on, you've got the positive, which is the positive 15, builds to 15 up here, and you've got the negative, which builds to negative. So I'm going to do this in slow motion. When the voltages build, they build like this, obviously, because you've got positive and negative building, and when the op amps turn on, the voltage builds to the voltage threshold, then it goes and then builds fully. So you can literally see visually on the scope the op amps drawing a little bit of current there as they turn on. So the output voltage from the Kias goes like this, and it's probably at that point. It's probably at that point where the amplifier does make the pop, because that is when the op amps are turning on. So it's like do do do. It's very fast. It happens very quickly. It's literally like do do. But I can just about see it on the scope. I can just about see the difference, because if you probe the input to the 7915 and 7815, it's smooth. It doesn't have a small little bump or pop, whereas the output has the current, the small bit of voltage drop drawn by the current. It goes doo-doo, and you can just about see it on the scope if you watch closely. But both the positive and the negative supply rails both do the small dip at the same time and to the same level. So it's not like one rail is drawing in more current than the other. They both are doing it equally. Forgive me for asking, you started this amp when I was watching. What is happening with the SCV-6K, if you're willing to explain it briefly? The SCV-6K that I've just been talking about, it was blown up because the installer wired the subs to a direct short circuit. So the amplifier blew the output section because it was trying to drive a short circuit. The customer turned the amplifier off and then on again because he didn't know that that was the problem. Where's the rest of the rail caps? Oh, on the board. So yeah, he turned the amplifier off and on again, and then when he turned the amplifier on the second time, the power supply was then trying to drive a short circuit on the output section, which then blew the power supply section. So the amplifier came into me with a blown power supply drive circuit, blown output section drive circuit. And also a problem with the preamp circuit, as viewed here. So yeah, that's the Sundown on the back burner for now, and I'll probably email Perry and see what he thinks. Right, so let's go and get another amplifier. I think I'm gonna go and grab, the amplifier from J Holm at B2 arrived in the post first, so that's the one that I'm gonna jump onto next. We're going to have a look at repairing a B2 audio amplifier, see if we can fix that. What amp did Jay send you? It'd be cool if it was a Raven. I don't know, I don't think it's a Raven, it's not that big. It's probably around about 5 or 6K, I think, from memory. Okay, so be right back. I'm back in just a moment. I'm going to go and get the B2 amplifier from upstairs. Okay. So here we are, a fresh amplifier. Let's see what we've got going on here then. And you can tell that it's come from J Holm because we've got the B2 audio tape on the front and around the sides, which I'm assuming only Jay has access to, or employees for Jay. Thanks for the info, Crazy Logic. I appreciate that. That's cool. Morning, Chris. If you're going to discharge a cap, better to do it with a resistor to avoid damage. Yeah, agreed. Yeah, definitely. That's good advice. Unless you like living life on the edge and excitement and risk in your life, then you can discharge 200 volt DC from a cap with a pair of pliers, especially if you like fireworks and you don't like your ears. Okay, so the amplifier that Jay has sent me, I have to say, in not the greatest amount of packaging. I would worry about the amplifier being damaged in that, but never mind. We may actually have a bit of damage on one of the corners here. This is slightly bent, but that could have been bent before. It's hard to tell, really. But okay, no worries. So yeah, this is a MA 6000.1. So this is another 6K. So the Sundown is a 6K, and this is a B2 audio 6K. So let's change the current amp to B2 MA 6000.1. Cool, right, now because this is such a lovely amplifier, it's very nice condition, we're going to grab our foam piece here and put the amplifier on the foam so as not to damage the front. Okay, so this amplifier has clearly never been opened before because we still have the warranty seal there, unless Jay's put a new sticker on, but I don't think this would have been opened before by anyone. So yeah, we still have the warranty seal sticker there. So let's go ahead and crack this open for the first time. How much bigger is this amp compared to my 01? I don't know, Giant, because I haven't actually seen your 01 yet. I've not started that one yet, so I'm not entirely sure. From memory, actually, no, I have. I've worked on the 01s before. The 01s are quite a bit smaller. The 01s are probably 2/3 of this amp. So this amp is another a third bigger again than the 01. Wow, alright then, that's interesting. So this amplifier is using all TO220 package MOSFETs. That's pretty interesting. I'm going to take my head cam off and I'm going to just use it as a cam here to show you in depth what we have inside this amplifier. So that's a bit crooked, but that's not a problem. That's not going to cause any issues. But yeah, the FET's just been put on a little bit skew if there. Not going to cause any problems though, so no issues. So if we take a visual inspection, we can see there that the power supply seems to have exploded. So we have some pretty burnt power supply there. FETs, these are probably going to be 3205s. So yeah, the most of this power supply is going to need repairing. We've got even more burnt power supply section over here. We've got very burnt out gate resistors there, as we can see. I'll wait for that to focus. Yeah, I've got some very burnt gate resistors in there as well. This very burnt this side. The drive circuit doesn't initially look damaged, but as we learnt with the Sundown amplifier, that could be damaged. This power supply drive board is the same power supply drive board as found in the Sundown and found in SPL Dynamics and pretty much every other amplifier in the world of this class. We've got 6 power supply transformers there. Now the Sundown had 8 of these, same size ones. So the Sundown amplifier, just going by looks, the Sundown SCV-6000D looks like it's going to be a lot more beefy than this B2 audio here with a similar rating. Also the output FETs, they are smaller package, which means that they don't dissipate their heat quite as quickly. But I think we've got more of them, have we? We've got, no, we've got the same number. So yeah, the Sundown amplifier appears to be superior in pretty much every way to this B2 audio here. The drive circuit is slightly different. So the B2 audio here looks like it's using no, I don't think they're not IRS 21844S. I think they're too long. I think these chips are something different. They could be an SI, a Silicon Instruments chip. Which is another half bridge or full bridge drive IC, but then so the chips don't directly drive the MOSFETs in this amplifier. We've got these buffer transistors here, so these smaller transistors here and here, these will take the drive wave from the chip, buffer it, like give it a bit more current handling behind it, before then sending it to the output FETs. We've got 4 great big relays here, which is more than, I think the Sundown has 2 large relays. So obviously the relays have to be able to pass the speaker signal, so higher current speaker signals will require more of these relays. Absolute shitload of rail caps, but they're smaller. We've got multiple smaller rail caps rather than a few big rail caps, so it's probably a similar capacitance to the Sundown in there. So let's just take our clip here and let's have a look. What output FETs is this using? Now I'm going to take a guess right now. This is a 6K, so this is going to be probably using something like, so with 6K, it's probably going to be using something like 45N30 or maybe 38N. No, hang on a minute. It could be using 28N40s or something along those lines. Or it could be an IRFB part, in which case the name of it is not relevant. Doesn't actually correspond to the output power. Now let's. It's quite hard to read that FET there because of without the thermal paste. Let's put a small bit of thermal paste on our finger. Rub the thermal paste on the FET, which makes the text a lot easier to read. Oh wow, okay, so we have actually got a 52N20. That's interesting. So 52N20s in the board. Now I wouldn't have thought that 200 volt FETs would be enough for this amount of power from this amplifier. So what this means is that either the amplifier is a full bridge amplifier, meaning that each half of the amplifier only needs half the rail voltage to do the same power as a half bridge amplifier. So if you think about how the half bridge and full bridge works, if you've got an amplifier that's a half bridge, which means that only the positive speaker output terminal is doing any work and the negative is just a ground. If you want to give the speaker 100 volts DC, then you need positive 50 volts rail and negative 50 volts rail, which means that the output FETs have got to be able to handle 100 volts worth of potential difference on the FETs, because they're going to be seeing 100 volts worth of potential between the rails. However, if you've got a full bridge amplifier now, and you want the speaker to see 100 volts DC on the speaker terminals, yeah, so on the full bridge amplifier, both the positive and negative speaker terminals are doing work but out of phase with each other, then you need half the rail voltage that you needed in a half bridge amplifier, because each side of the full bridge amplifier is going to be doing a 50 volt 50 volt AC sine wave. So in order for the speaker to see 100 volts AC, similar to how it did in the half bridge, on a full bridge amplifier, each half of the amplifier only needs to produce a 50 volt sine wave. But because it's out of phase with each other, when it goes fully out of phase, the speaker sees 100 volt potential difference between the two 50 volt sine waves at their peaks out of phase with each other. So the speaker still sees 100 volts, but the sine wave only has to be 50 volts AC, which means that the rail voltage in each half of the amplifier only has to be 25 volts plus minus to get a 50 volt potential difference between the FETs, which then results in a 100 volt difference between the speaker terminals. So the fact that this only has 200 volt FETs in it leads me to believe that in order to do 6,000 watts RMS, which I think is what this amplifier claims to do, yeah, I think that's the power handling of this amplifier. In order to do 6K, it's probably going to need to be a full bridge amplifier so that it can do the out of phase thing on the speaker terminals to bump up the voltage that the speaker sees to make 6K. So Giant has just confirmed here, yes, this is a full bridge Class D design, as I just guessed there, because we have the lower voltage FETs on there. Okay, so yeah, let's get cracking with this. I think we might only have a power supply repair to do, but I don't know. Let's see what the output section is saying on here. Zika Sika says me another 100. No, oh no, he doesn't. I just pressed the home button on my on my keyboard, and it jumped up to the top of the live chat when Zikan sent me 100 SEK. But I thought he sent it to me again, but no, he hasn't. So ignore that. Right. So let's check to see if we have an output section failure on this amplifier as well, because we obviously visibly have a power supply section failure because it's all blackened. So let's see. Do we have a short circuit on any of the output rails here? So we just take our multimeter diode beep setting, check for continuity between these. Looking good so far. Doesn't seem to be any shorts across the rails. I think that's the thing. So this amplifier obviously has quite a bit of spare space. I would prefer to see the 247 AC package FETs on the output section here, because they have a larger surface area, so they can dissipate the heat to the heatsink a lot quicker than the TO220 parts. I would much rather see either 247 AC or TO3PN package parts would probably be a little bit better on this amplifier. Okay, so the output section appears to be intact as far as I can see, in the sense that there are no shorted MOSFETs. Doesn't necessarily mean the output section is happy, but generally it means that there is not an excessive fault with the output section, because there's no shorted FETs. So now that's the funny thing, it's not often that the power supply just dies of its own accord. Usually there's a reason for the output section to die, either a shorted transformer winding or output section failure, but in this case it doesn't seem to be the case. Vibration damage, snapping a leg on the power supply FETs, A bunch of reasons. The customer wired the amplifier backwards is another reason. So what we're going to have to do is, without further ado, we're going to have to take this thing apart, and in order to find out what caused this amplifier to fail, we need to make the repair on the power supply section. So we can't necessarily see what caused the power supply to go down yet. Once we've fitted the new FET and maybe new drivers, if it needs new drivers, then we'll be able to see if the power supply is working or if there's a shorted transformer. Giant has done the favor and he has listed the output power. So power at 1 ohm, 12 volts to 14.4 volts. This amplifier is supposed to do between 2400 watts, 4200 watts and 6200 watts. So yeah, this amplifier claims to do 6200 watts at 14.4 volts. And hopefully we can make a pretty quick repair here, and we can do a bench test to see whether those claims line up with what it is saying. B2 amplifiers are very nice, very good build quality, but from past experience of working on B2 amplifiers, they don't always necessarily make quite their rated power. From the bench tests that I've made, they tend to make a little bit underrated power. But there are lots of amp dyno videos which confirm that the amplifiers do indeed make overrated power. So maybe it just depends what amplifier model it is. So the models that I've repaired so far have actually, no, that's a lie. Oh crap, no, that's an absolute lie. The same one that Giant has got. Where is it? The 01. Holy crap! So the 01 is meant to be what? What's the 01 meant to be? Is that meant to be a 3K or a 4K amplifier? But anyway, sorry, I think the 01 is meant to be a 3K amplifier. The 01 when I bench tested it, it was reliably, consistently doing just under 4000 watts RMS. So almost a whole 1000 watts greater than its rated power. So that was very impressive. The B2 audio that I repaired that didn't quite make its rated power was a big class AB. I think it was a Mark II Duo or something like that. And it didn't quite make its rated power, but it still made very impressive power for the amplifier. Just was a little bit shy of rated. Okay, cool. I think that's all the screws out. I just found some extra screws for Sundown, so I'm going to put those back in the bag before I lose them. My friend, he bought a Sundown 2.5K because he thought he'd put out more power than the 01 at lower cost. No chance. No chance. The yeah, the 01's getting on for double the power of the Sundown amp. The Sundown amps, they make pretty much bang on the nose rated power. They don't make any more, any less. But yeah, the B201 is a beast. So I think the power supply was using 3205s. Yeah, IRFP 3205. Nice and easy. I've got shitloads of those in stock, so we're just going to go ahead and replace all those nice and quick. It might take a little while actually, because there's quite a lot of these 3205. So this unfortunately this amplifier repair video is probably going to be quite a lot of desoldering, sucking holes, and resoldering. A bit similar to the Sundown. I've got a lot of solder pads and holes on there to suck out before we can actually do any real work on this. Was way to something. What happened to the Sundown amp? Did you get it fixed? So no, the changes I made to the preamp circuit didn't actually fix anything on the Sundown amplifier is doing the same thing as it was doing 2 days ago, in the sense that the preamp circuit board is giving a pop to the board. What I did do on the Sundown is I removed most of the rail capacitors. I only left one capacitor on the positive and one capacitor on the negative rail, and the reason for that was to the reason for that was to what's going to be easier here, to remove those 4 screws. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Or yeah, fuck it, let's remove those. Yeah. Anyway, sorry. Yeah, no, I'm actually going to remove these ones. That'd be easier. Sorry. Yeah, the rail caps. Remove those so that, because when the popping issue happens on the Sundown amplifier, it tends to want to spike the full rail voltage to the FET. And then they die. So by removing the rail capacitors, or most of them anyway, we significantly reduce the amount of energy which is stored on the output section. Which means that if there obviously is an issue where the FETs are going to blow, then having only one cap per rail means that there is a vastly significantly reduced amount of energy on the output section, so that if any damage does occur, the damage is much lessened by the fact that we have much less energy on the output section stored up in the caps. Wonder why the wires are so thin inside boards. What do you mean so thin? Which wires are so thin? What do you mean these things? These aren't thin, these are thick as hell for speaker cables, considering their short length. So the wires that you see inside the amp here, these are actually the speaker output. So the speaker, the positive and negative speaker terminal outputs are actually here on the board in the middle. But obviously that's no good at being in the middle of the board, it needs to be on the terminal. So they just have a piece of speaker wire that connects it to the terminals. Now this is very, very thick speaker wire, so that's more than thick enough for, oops, for anything that you need. And also the thing is with the speaker output, the speaker output is a high voltage low current compared to the power input. So the only time when you need thick cables is when you've got high current, generally lower voltage. But with the speaker output, the power is because of a higher voltage, and there's a much lower current there compared to the power wire. And that's why your power wire needs to be 0 gauge or 70 mil or even bigger, but your speaker wire can be much thinner, even though technically it's doing the similar sort of power. I'm just pulling all the FETs and rectifiers off of the heatsink so I can slide the board out cleanly without them. I don't want them to pull the thermal pads with them when they come out, because that sort of screws them up and makes them a bit annoying to work with. Okay, cool. So we should be good to slide the board out now. Ah, yes, and of course there's a bloody chassis ground cable. Okay. Do I just solder that off, or do I do the long way and take the bolts off instead? I'll tell you what, that is one really annoying thing about B2 amps that winds me up. The chassis ground cable is screwed in underneath the board, and no matter which way you take the board out, no matter which side plate you take off first, you always have to take the other one off after you realise that the chassis ground cable is actually attached to the bottom of the board, and to access the screw you have to take the other plate off that you didn't take off in the first place. Really, really annoying. I'd much rather the chassis ground wire was just linked to one of the side screw mounts or something easier that you can just unscrew, rather than having to slide the board one way, unscrew the chassis ground, and then unslide the board the other way. Really annoying. Beautiful, beautiful. Alright then, let's get cracking with the power supplies. So, naturally, because these power supply bits have all smoked up, we need to go ahead and get these removed. So, let's put the, we've got the nice big tip on my soldering iron. I think, because when I did the Sundown amp, I actually cut all of them, I cut all the FETs off, then I removed the leads individually, but I think that's actually a little bit longer. A bit of a longer method. I think a quicker method is actually just to cook up the 3 legs at once and pull each FET out, because then you just get that done in one hit, and you haven't got to pull each individual leg out and then de-suck the solder from each of the holes. So I'm just going to cook up some fresh solder on these legs first to make it a little easier to pull out. Just real quick, go ahead and cook up some fresh solder on here. Now this is a bit of a waste of solder, because then you're just using the solder to desolder, but it makes life easier, and solder doesn't cost much, so it's no big issues really. Or maybe they'd fall out of their own accord if I do that for long enough. Yeah, they do. They fall out of their own accord. Wicked. That's going to save some time. Okay, so yeah, watch this. This is a nice easy bit. So, because these B2 boards are quite high quality, literally, I can just cook up the solder there. This is going to save some time. Just cook it up on all 3 holes, and then the FET just falls out. Wicked. Yeah, let's do that. Bloop. This doesn't always happen on all boards, but it's a decent high quality PCB and some good solder, and that'll happen. Obviously means I've got to do some sweeping later on off the floor, but yeah, it's not to worry. Let's see if that will happen without the additional solder. See, I haven't put any additional solder on this one. And it does sort of happen, but it doesn't happen as quickly and it's not as effective. The additional solder there creates an extra surface area for the heat to transfer to the other pads. Hello there, another busy day. Yes, another busy day in the BearVids workshop. Alright. So let's suck the holes from these. Yes, I don't use lead-free solder. Lead-free solder is the worst thing to ever come from soldering. I use leaded 4060, yeah. Lead-free solder just has the same consistency as an old cheese. Uh-oh. looking on the board here, it looks like we've got some blackened, burned areas on the drive circuit. So I imagine we're probably going to have to do the same thing we did with the Sundown audio amplifier. We're going to have to replace all the drive FETs as well, transistors as well, which is going to be really annoying because I don't think I've got enough NPNs. I don't think I've got enough 139s. I think I've only got BD1. I think I've only got 2 SB772s left. So I need to order some new flipping power supply drive transistors for this in order to get this up and running. So I might not even be able to finish this one today. God damn it! But we'll see. I think this is the quickest FET removal that I've ever seen. He says that now has a one that's a bit of a pain in the arse. Come on, fall out. There we go. Wicked! Wicked! Jungle is massive. Split it up! What do you mean you think B2 is a Danish brand? Of course it's a Danish brand. Have you not seen their strapline? B2, sweet like Danish. They have it everywhere. They even print it on their batteries and all sorts. Hey Scott, how's it going, my friend? got some blown rectifier diodes on a small 2-channel amp, 1620. Have you got a recommendation on replacement parts? I covered that in the last video. I think it was either somebody asked the same question or similar. Basically, just because the parts that you can get differ so much between countries, what you just need to do is you just need to go on your the website of wherever you get your parts from, and as long as you find a ultra fast recovery diode that has the similar specs, 16 amps and 20 volts, sorry, 200 volts, then it'll be fine. As long as it's ultra fast recovery and it has the same voltage and current handling specs, then you'll have no problem, it'll be fine. What has happened to the workshop? Was it a new one? No, it's not a new one. I just moved things around a little bit. Made myself some more space. Now obviously we've got some dead gate resistors on this side, but what I'm just more curious to see is how badly the drive circuit is damaged. Because unfortunately if the drive circuit is damaged on this one, I don't have enough NPN drive transistors to complete the repair today, which is going to be really annoying. So let's just power her up and check there's no solder bridges. Yep, that charge is fine. Okay, so with about 10 volts worth of input, let's see if this thing has what the drive wave looks like on any of these gate pads here. It helps if I put the remote cable in, doesn't it? Okay, so it looks like we've got okay looking drive on that pad. Okay drive. Now this amp's actually drawing 0.5 amps, and that's quite a lot of amps to be drawing considering the output section is not working. 0.1 amps, but then as soon as the relays click in it goes to 5, so that's actually the relays that are causing the current draw there, no worries. Okay, so we've got a 5.2 volt RMS drive wave over here on this side of the board. Now this side of the board doesn't look like it got damaged quite as much as the other side. 5.3, 5.3. Okay, so this other side of the board looks like it got damaged much worse. So let's have a look. Oh, we've got 5.4 volts there. 5.3. 5.2, that's a little weaker there. Actually, I think my power supply is just fluctuating a little bit. 5.0. Okay. Oh, okay. So the power supply drive circuit might be intact enough to do some of the repair here with you. Uh-oh. No, that one's a 4.4 volt. That one's not very good. Okay, so it looks like we've got a couple of these ones over here. Yeah, so there's one bank of FETs over here. We've got 4.4 volt worth of drive, and then the other two over here we've got pretty much nothing. It's just like a tiny little wave. It does basically nothing. So, okay. Yeah, so it looks like we've got good drive on most of these, but a couple of these need repairing. So when repairing the drives, it's a good idea if you're gonna, yeah, that one looks bad. It's a good idea if you're gonna repair the drive transistors anyway, you might as well upgrade all of them. So rather than just replacing the two or the 3 or 4 that are bad there, I'm actually gonna go ahead and replace all of those drive transistors. Yeah. But sadly, I need to order some more BD139s in order to do that. So that's where we're going to have to leave it at today. I've got some things to do this afternoon. My Proton failed the MOT, and it failed it on anti-roll bar ball joint dust covers, the small rubber things that go around and they protect the ball joints from corrosion. They have corroded, the rubber has corroded, so I need to get new things put on that, and so I need to do that today. So that's something I'm going to be doing this afternoon. So yeah, take it easy, guys. Thank you very much for watching. Didn't actually manage to fix anything fully during this live stream, but hopefully the information on the Sundown was useful information to you. Yeah, and I shall see you in the next stream. Bye now.